Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of Entrepreneurship Lab. This is your host, Nevena Bajalac, welcoming you once again to the podcast where we help you grow and scale your business. Today, we have an incredible guest coming to us all the way from LA. Her name is LaKiesha Tomlin.
Tomlin.
Sorry, LaKiesha.
Yeah.
Tomlin. And LaKiesha is a Yale MBA and founder of the Profitable Traders Academy. She teaches busy professionals and entrepreneurs how to, simple rules, basically, how to trade stocks and create a second source of income or some kind of security for yourself. So we're gonna have LaKiesha talk to us, real talk, her experience, what happened and what led you into investing into stocks. So please help me welcome her to the show.
Thank you so much, Nevena, for having me on your show.
Sorry for the hiccup with the last name.
Yeah, that's pretty common, like very common. I can't even get it out myself, where people add like stuff, but it's all good. You are good. Let's go.
It was my excitement, like just reading the bio, and I'm so happy you're here today. So share with us a little bit of your background. Obviously, I think this is such an interesting topic for entrepreneurs and people who are starting business because we have to, invest our money. We have to invest smartly. And also, we want to maybe create a second source of income or just some kind of security and make sure our money is growing and not just sitting there in the bank if, we have some savings in the bank. So how did you get there as an MBA graduate from Yale? What led you to this direction? I know a little bit, I read a little bit about the story, but I would love for you to share it with everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, the journey actually started at this point, wow, about 16 plus years ago. So if people look back, they know that the markets were basically in chaos and there were just a lot of things going on. And even at that point, I had a really tough time like wrapping my mind around putting money into the markets because I felt like I didn't know anything. And at that point, I really didn't know anything. So it just took me taking a few small steps to get started. And then over time, building that momentum in order to get to where I am many, many years later.
So tell me, I want to step back a little bit. So obviously you studied MBA at Yale, right?
Yes.
Famous worldwide university. But I love because I didn't study business, but the life led me in that way. And most of the things I learned is from books and practice as well, and having best mentors. I'm just curious, coming from such a prestige university, what is one thing that was something, if we can find one thing that really was helpful for you in this journey when it comes to money and finance? And was there something that you felt like, oh, in the real world, this is not how it's working, right? Because sometimes I feel we're studying, we're learning so many things, and then the moment you step out, it's like a new world. You're starting from zero, which is kind of, the real world after university. So how was it for you? I'm really curious to know.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. And for me, some of the really great things was being able to speak to some of my classmates who had actually worked on Wall Street. And I was just asking them just random questions, and they were very helpful in answering those questions, pointing me into the right direction to get answers. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then just from the program itself, one of the classes that I actually really liked was corporate finance, and I was very surprised that I would actually like that class. But in that particular class and the way that it was taught, it was helping me understand more of how businesses not only bring money in, but what it means for the shareholders. And we also had some other classes around investing as well, but that class stuck out to me the most. And when you talk about, the classroom versus the real world, I felt like because the program was a master's level program, that like, yes, there was the classroom stuff, but there were people with real world experience where they could interject or they could agree or disagree on whatever was being talked about. So you basically got both perspectives, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that. And that's super nice to hear. And I think it's so important that in general, if we are investing so much into education, I mean every education from medical to,
Yeah,
healthcare or well, I think it really has to be connected more and especially business. Um, because you have to get some hands-on experience and sometimes you have to be like, okay, so I learned in theory, for example, investing in stocks, but where do I start? Which leads me to
right.
the next question. If somebody never invested in stocks, what would you say is the first step to start?
Yeah, so I'll just share from my perspective. Obviously, none of this is financial advice whatsoever. But the first thing I did was literally go into Google and type in how to invest in stocks. Like it's literally that simple. And then, of course, you jump down all of these different rabbit holes in terms of trying to, figure out what actually works for me, what is just garbage, because there's obviously a lot of information. So the next best thing for me was actually looking at a couple of books. So one of the books I remember reading at that time was literally Investing for Dummies. It gives you like an outline and then just more books. And then one of my coworkers who sat right next to me, I told him what I was looking to do. And he said, hey, go to investopedia.com. And basically, what that helped me with was the terminology, because a lot of times in finance or anything finance related, the terminology is one of the things that stop people from moving forward. And it's
Exactly.
like I don't know what these things mean, so break it down to me as simply as possible. And that is exactly what a site like Investopedia did for me. And then once you start learning the terminology, it's like, okay, this is not as complicated as I thought it was. Like literally, it was not. Once I started to really understand the terminology. So I kept like a notebook, like, this right here. It's like a notebook, taking notes and just keeping track of that inside of the notebook. When I came across a word I didn't know, looked it up on Investopedia or just a random Google search and wrote it down. And then the cool thing I like about Investopedia or just, searching is that you could find, videos. So it'll explain it even more, which is really cool. So going back to your original question, the first thing is make a decision that you actually want to learn how to do it. And that's going to be the first thing because some people dabble and they never make any progress. Like, be real with yourself. Do I really want to do this? If the answer is yes, go and take the first step, which is literally typing into Google. Now we're in a good time where there's a lot more information, not necessarily saying that it's all good information, but in a great time where we have AI tools and things that can at least get us on the right path. One thing I will caution people when it comes to AI, because I've tested these things out myself, is that it's just going to like basically it's just a combination of everything that's on the internet. Some's good, some's bad. So that's why in a lot of these AI tools, they have the disclaimer at the bottom, like we can make mistakes because,
Yes.
it's basically it's just a whole bunch of very complex calculations in the background that's giving you an answer. So see what it says to start. But as far as like actually finding an investing strategy or a trading strategy, I wouldn't necessarily fully rely on AI. I would just use it kind of like in this sense as like a dictionary,
Yeah.
and looking up terms and just understanding some of the basics of how things work because it's really good at that. But as far as like, should like if I had questions for myself, like, should I put 5% of my money into this company, it's not going to give me a good answer. And I know because I tried it just to test it out because some of my students were asking me about this
Yeah.
and it just wasn't good. So it's just not something that I would do. So you learn those things as you go, through this process. But deciding and starting that taking that first step is the best way to start on this journey.
Yeah, I love that. And I just want to go back. Something you said is about
Yeah.
how, I don't know, I think as a woman to woman, we can also speak how, in the man world of corporation and investing
Yeah.
money. I think they just wanted to scare the women. They don't know anything about money and investing, which is absolutely proven wrong, right? That women are better investor, and actually, so many women in their household are managing money better than their husbands. The husband makes some money and they're managing it. So I think this was so interesting, and I always we're going to talk a little bit about your programs and what you teach. But for me, when I'm consulting or coaching entrepreneurs, I always say it's not a rocket science. Step one, step two, step three. Let's do it, and then
Right.
we go to the next step. Because
Right.
I found that you read some books and then you feel like dumb. Like you feel dumb and stupid because there's some words you don't understand, and you think you need university or whatever, and you're like, oh my God, these people sound so smart. And actually, in practice, like some of the people with the least education are the most successful businessmen because they just understood a couple of basic principles. And I
Yep.
think I love that advice because for everyone listening, of course it's scary when you go to any kind of new industry or any new territory because you don't know even the vocabulary. If you just
Right.
switch job from, I don't know, healthcare and you go into education, there's going to be so many vocabulary you have no idea.
Yep.
And then I think same with investing and money. You just have to now, especially with Google and AI, you have to break through and just try to explain it to yourself that you understand in the best way. And I thank you for that. I love it because that's the first step to start for sure.
Yeah, and something that you said that I thought was interesting, when you're starting anything new, it's going to be scary. And,
Yeah.
starting a business is scary. Especially, I started this company 10 years ago and I went to Google. I was like, how to start a company because I did not know. And it was like, okay, oh, I have to have, this number from the government for when I file my taxes. Oh, maybe I shouldn't try to do these finances myself. Maybe let me hire a CPA. So, like all these different things that you learn along the way, the terminology in business is the exact same thing. You
Yeah.
just have to figure out the terminology and just take the first step and just continue to take tiny steps after that in order to build that momentum.
So tell us now a little bit, now that you mentioned your company, where are you now? What are you guys exactly doing for everyone listening? And I want to go back to those starting points, starting from
Yeah.
Google, how to open a company. I love that. So tell us a little bit, where are you now? What do you do? And then we go back a little bit in how you achieved some of your goals.
Yes, absolutely. So, what I do is I help people make good decisions in the markets and in their career. So, one thing I was looking at even before I got into investing, I was making really great decisions in my career, and basically the markets and investing just amplified that. It's being able to make decisions sometimes quickly, sometimes with a little bit of time, but it's making those decisions. So, what I do is kind of two pronged. The first thing or the first group of people is people who work are people who work in a professional corporate job, usually sometimes entrepreneurs. We do have some of those people in the group where basically they want to learn how to trade and invest. And that is what I help them with in terms of we meet twice a week. There's a really robust curriculum that they can follow. So that's one path. The other path that I am starting to dig into is actually I want to work with corporate, essentially tech companies and stuff like that, in order to help people make good decisions. Because one thing I realized, especially being a technical leader for well over 10 years and working with a lot of engineers, a lot of times we have really great ideas. Sometimes we can't communicate them, or sometimes if we have too many ideas or possibilities, we fall into this whole analysis paralysis trap and never really make a decision. And then before you know it, the moment has passed. Or maybe, there's a lot of people who are dependent upon you to make a decision, and the decision is still not made because you're still
Yeah.
trying to get all the information, all the data, and try to just weigh everything. And sometimes you just need to make a decision and just move forward with it and course correct as necessary. So that is something that I really want to work with companies and organizations on, just because it's such a powerful tool, and being able to make those decisions quickly is just good for everybody.
I love that. So tell me a little bit like yourself as an entrepreneur, right? You had, building your career, your experience. What was maybe one of the challenges for you personally that you feel very proud you overcome, or something maybe you didn't know? Because there is one thing that we have the knowledge, even sometimes, let's say maybe you worked in a place where you're buying stocks, but building now your own business requires you to wear many, many hats.
Yep.
And it's completely different journey. So what is something that you found it challenging, maybe beginning or mid journey so far in building a business, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and I'm trying to pare it down to just a couple of things, because there were a number of things. So first off, creating this company on the side while working full time and also trying to grow in my career, that was very challenging because I mean, I constantly had to basically prioritize the things that I needed to do in the business and obviously not or make sure that the job didn't slip. So the job was the main source of income. Obviously, you take care of that, you make sure things are getting done. So that was a challenge at times. And sometimes, some nights I would come home and I would want to do things for the business, but I was just completely exhausted from work, from making a lot of decisions, leading technical teams, dealing with a lot of different issues that may come out throughout the work day. That was very challenging. So for me, over time, the thing that I did was build systems into my life. So basically, what that looked like for me was obviously blocking off the time where I was generally at work. Now, sometimes, of course, that would spill over due to a number of reasons, but basically have that block of time for my day job. And that was obviously untouchable. But then I found out over time that there was usually 1 or 2 hours, sometimes more, that I would have just free in the evenings before I ate or went to bed or whatever. So basically, just finding that block of time and then also defining what am I going to do in that time, because sometimes if I just had the block of time and didn't really have like an idea of what I was going to do, I was off doing other stuff like jumping down the YouTube rabbit hole where I look at a video and then I'm watching another video, and then next thing I know, I'm watching something that has nothing to do with my business whatsoever. So basically, just 1 to 2 things generally is good enough to work on those things. And it's basically just refining the system that I created for myself over time to make sure that I was actually moving forward in the business. I was getting things done that I needed to. And then eventually it got to a point where I couldn't do everything myself because I not only had customers, but I also was creating content on social media like a lot of us do. YouTube is very time consuming, and there is a huge lag between when you post, and even if it's consistently, till people actually show up and want to give you money for your services. So eventually I had to hire people just on these like freelancer sites and get some things done. That really helped. And now, in the age that we're in now with AI, it helps you execute faster. So I've been able to, get more, out of, my time, so that way I'm not working 24/7, even though currently I do work quite a bit, but I enjoy it.
I know there was one of the entrepreneurs I interview, Emily, and she posted something like, "Oh, I quit, working 9 to 5 or someone else, so I can work 24 hours for myself," something like that. That's like going onwards all the time on social media. It's so
Yep.
funny, but yeah, yeah, I love that you share. Thank you for that, and. I think what you shared here, something about, we call it time management. Sometimes I say it's not about time, it's about priorities and just
Yep.
tasks. So we all have time, even myself, even all of us, sometimes we're just tired. And then we end up spending an hour scrolling on social media and something like that. So I think if we stay focused, if we don't overwhelm ourselves, if we, divide the tasks and say, oh, I'm going to do in this 15 minutes, this one task, I have a lunch break of an hour. That's what I did many years ago when I decided I'm going to open my own company. And I still had a job. I would use my 1 hour lunch break to either read a book, write a plan, do something. So I would get out of the, like we had a kitchen where we eat. I would go in an actual coffee shop nearby and work there for 1 hour. And it was incredible. What could I achieve? So I love that advice that you share, and thank you for that. And I think everyone listening, just try to create a system for yourself, no matter if you still have a job and you're trying to transition, or you want to do two things, or maybe you're working but you want to learn investing in stocks and start
Yep.
doing that actually. Then you just have to allocate some time, and it doesn't even have to be every day, but if you just allocate a couple of hours a week, you would be surprised how much you can achieve.
Absolutely. And to that point, when people are interested in trading and investing, I tell people dedicate at least 30 minutes per day and then more on the weekends if you can. I mean, especially because just the smallest tasks over time, like that really does build the momentum. I think a lot of people discount that. And sometimes if people are really pressed for time, especially during the week, 15 minutes, like
Yeah.
something towards it because it's just going to help you become just that much better.
Yes, yes. And compound effect, same like with stocks,
Yep.
right? Over
Yeah,
time. So
exactly.
same with
Exactly.
everything else. So we're running a little bit out of the time. I have so many questions for you, but I would love to know what is something, if people are investing in stocks or want to invest, what is something you see as a mistake, maybe a common mistake that you would really like people not to do? Maybe it doesn't have to be directly with stocks, maybe with something they are doing with their time and so on. But what is something you see it kind of as a mistake and you wish people would know about?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And there are two things that come to mind right now. So, first is thinking that they need to have a PhD in finance or economics in order to understand the markets. That is totally not true. And I talked about a couple of different ways to overcome that earlier. So, definitely watch that back, listen to it back. Whatever you need to do. So that's the first mistake. The second is focusing on too many markets at the same time. So, just to give some context, if someone is interested in a company like Apple, not
Mhm.
financial advice, but like Apple, where that is a market, and then they're also looking at 10 other markets as well, a lot of times there's so many things happening at the same time, it's really hard to focus. So I tell people I like to focus on 1 to 2 markets at a time. At least that's how I got started. And over time, I just built that momentum and it helped me understand what was happening in that one market. That market was Apple for me,
Yeah.
just to let you know. But I focused on that market and then I saw how it moved. And then I was like, okay, maybe I want to add Amazon. Amazon was the second company for me. And just it helped me just to really understand things happening in the market. So that's how earlier I was able to build that momentum because I focused on 1, then 2 markets, and then I added more. And even recently, I had to cut the list of things I was looking down dramatically because I kind of drifted. And then I had to come back to the core idea that I have is 1 to 2 markets at a time, just so that way I can focus and capitalize on opportunities that appeared.
Yeah. Wow, I love that advice. Thank you so much. And as we're coming to the end, first of all, I would love for you to share how people can reach out to you, a little bit about services you are providing as well in your company. And then just another piece of advice is something important that maybe we didn't mention so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to connect with me, I'm very active on LinkedIn. Literally just search my name and you will find me. And if someone is interested, or if you're interested in learning how to trade the markets and then you could go to lakeishatrades.com. And if you're in an organization where you're looking to bring someone in for decision making and having a framework in order to make decisions quickly, then you can go to lakeishaspeaks.com. And one other thing I want to mention here is that if you're trying to juggle a full-time job, creating a business, and maybe wanting to learn how to trade, first off, breathe. It is possible. So, one thing that worked for me when I was in the process of learning and I had this business and I had a full-time job is in the mornings, that was my time to look at the markets. Then I had the work block. And then in the evening, like I talked about those 1 to 2 hours, that's when I did things in the business. And that was something that helped me out a lot. And then on the weekends, I could do fun things with friends and family and then have maybe a couple of blocks of an hour or 2 hours, whatever that looked like on a Saturday and or Sunday. and be able to accomplish those things. It wasn't quick, but over time, I was able to gain momentum in all those different areas. So that's just something I wanted to share as well.
I love it, and I love it because it's a real talk, real advice, not selling you stars in the moon or something. Because sometimes as
Right.
entrepreneurs, we just feel like, oh, this person, I don't know, built millions, and in 2 years, and you feel like you're nowhere and stuff. So not everyone's journey is like that, and that's actually just a couple of stories of people who, did something extraordinary, but doesn't mean we are not doing something less extraordinary. If the journey is steady, if you keep progressing, learning, investing, having your money grow, you have that stability and you are going somewhere. So we want to support you, everyone listening, and go to LinkedIn, LaKiesha Tomlin, saying it correctly this time, and connect with LaKiesha and reach out, like you heard, if you need the support. And thank you, LaKiesha, for being here. Really, I enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much, Nevina, for having me.
Thank you everyone for listening. Remember to download the episode, subscribe if you haven't already, give us some likes, comments. What would you like to hear next on the podcast? And yes, as always, share it with at least one more entrepreneur or a person that can benefit from this interview. Thank you for being here. I see you in the next episode.